welcome to the Fate and Football Cash Game Picks for Week 8. This should be a fun week. I was looking through the pricing, it's really tight. That means there's not a lot of great value plays, so we're really going to have to make smart choices in our cash game lineups this week. I'm looking forward to it, so let's dive in. First up, we've got quarterback. The lowest price option I like this week at 5,700 is Dalton. Early on, I think he might be my favorite play. Dalton did have a slow start, and since he has played about how you would expect from a middle-of-the-road team, which it's pretty clear they are. Dalton had some good showings against the Bills, Browns, and Packers, and then bad weeks against the Steelers, Texans, and Ravens. So he did great against the good defenses, and he struggled against the bad defenses. This week he has a great matchup in Indy, who has got a banged-up defense. I think they'll be able to throw all over them, and Dalton should be in for a good day. Next up, like last week, we're going to go back to Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor's at home in a reasonable matchup with Dallas. This game could easily become a shootout with both teams running up and down the field. I think there's every reason to fire him up again this week. With his running ability, he always has a safe floor. The downside with Tyrod is he's never going to get you a big game in the air, get you the 300-yard bonus, or throw for a couple of touchdowns. That said, he's had some big games before, so I think this could be a good spot for one of those, and I think he has a safe floor. For a little bit pricier option, we've got Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is playing at home with a very beatable New Orleans defense. In a game that could very well turn into a shootout. This game has the highest Vegas over-under and a spread of only -1 for New Orleans. So I think a shootout's definitely in order. On top of that, Washington really hasn't been able to have a great run game outside of Chris Thompson, who really just catches passes. So I think it's all systems go for Kirk Cousins this week, and I'll definitely I think have him in a good number of my lineups. Running back. I know I recommended Joe Mixon last week. Well, he didn't break out like I'd hoped. The game script really didn't go his way. That said, he led the Cincinnati running backs in rushing and targets, and it just wasn't a disaster. He had 10 points, so I don't think we can really complain given his price, and he's priced reasonably again this week, and with a solid matchup against Indiana, I don't see any reason not to put him in. We could very well have a shootout situation where they just hand him the ball to run out the clock. Normally, I don't recommend catching backs, but James White's been very consistent all year. Given the number of targets he sees and his price, I think he really plays well this week, especially when we're starved for value players. Really, White is a hybrid slot receiver, pass-catching running back. Yeah, they do run him through the tackles every now and then again, but most of the time he's out there trying to catch passes. There's just a very few wide receivers in his price range that you would rather play instead of White, so I think he makes a really great flex play. Mark Ingram has been crushing it with Adrian Peterson gone, and New Orleans has really been relying on the run game. Per playerprofiler.com, he's also running against the league's best offensive line when it comes to run blocking. He's also a reliable pass catcher with 5 and 4 catches in the last 2 games and at least 4 targets a game, while averaging over 5 targets a game. That for a running back, those are gaudy numbers. So, I think there's every reason, even though we've seen his price go up over $3,000 in the last couple of weeks, to look at Mark Ingram again. The biggest downside is that Alvin Kamara has been taking a bit of his workload, especially in passing situations. But that said, New Orleans has decided that they're going to run their offense through these two guys. So I think Mark Ingram makes a great play. Next up, we've got Shady. LeSean McMoy, he's back. Last week, some positive regression. hit Shady like a ton of bricks. He knocked in 2 touchdowns. Had well over 100 yards. With his usage, he's a great play every week, and Oakland's really struggled to defend pass catching backs. I realize his price is up, but I think he has every chance to make value. At the top of the list, we've got Ezekiel Elliott. I think we all know what Zeke's ability is to smash, and on this week's, I think he'll be smashing on 2 fronts. One, all over the Washington Redskins, and also, he smashed in court and somehow managed to avoid suspension for another week. So if you can find room, I think Ezekiel Elliott at 9,200 is a really great play. Wide receiver, definitely tricky this week. There's lots of different ways you could go. Lots of players in good matchups. I think a lot of them might be better tournament games than cash games plays, but these are the guys that stand out for me. AJ Green is just a stud. He gets 32% of his team's targets. He's averaging over 9.5 targets a game. He also has 2 games over 30 points this year. He's had a couple duds, but the floor's pretty high and the ceiling's even higher for AJ Green. So I think he could really help out your teams this week. Don't believe the hype about New England's improved defense. Keenan Allen still has a great matchup. The Hawks are terrible. That game was frustrating to watch. They were making awful play calls. They just don't seem to have any idea what they're doing on offense. Keenan Allen's averaging 9.7 targets a game. New England's really struggled over the middle. Keenan Allen running out of the slot should just smash all over New England. Doug Baldwin is one of my favorite plays. He's always underpriced. He's going to be running out of the slot against Houston's less than great Kareem Jackson. As the slot back, he is 100th ranked slot back per PFF. So out of 113th eligible corners. So he at least by the Pro Football Focus metrics, he is not good. The Seattle offense is really coming around. Looks like they're giving the ball to Russell Wilson and letting him throw. They've realized that they just can't run the ball effectively. Doug Baldwin leads the team in targets by a large margin, and I think he's in every chance of having a big game this week. So I really like Doug Baldwin. He's one of my favorite plays this week. Michael Crabtree won me a lot of money last year. He is the number 1 receiver in Oakland. I know you Amari Cooper truthers hate to hear that, but the reality is he is. Derek Carr looks to Michael Crabtree, especially in big situations, and he's always priced lower than Amari Cooper. So last year I played Michael Crabtree in cash games almost every week, and he won me a lot of money. If he on top of that, he's the 9th in the league in red zone target share, and he has a very beatable matchup against Buffalo. So I think it's all system go for Michael Crabtree this week, and I'd look for him to have a good week. In the past, we've always thought of DeSean Jackson as a tournament play only. That said, in Tampa Bay, I think things have changed, and I think we need to make some adjustments on our perceptions of DeSean Jackson, not Michael Jackson. He's been getting a steady diet of targets at 7 a game, and they've been all over the field. He hasn't just been getting long balls like he did in Washington. Tampa Bay just doesn't have the receivers like Pierre Garçon, Jamison Crowder, or even Jordan Reed. With only him and Mike Evans really being the effective receivers on that team. The targets have to go to one of the 2 of them, and oftentimes teams really sell out to stop Mike Evans. Another really interesting stat I found on DeSean Jackson this week is that he's actually 2nd in the league in air yards, per Josh Ermsmeyer's website, airyards.com, only behind the GOAT, Antonio Brown. Air yards are one of the more predictive stats in terms of predicting future our performance. So I think Deshaun Jackson has graduated from not just being a tournament play to being a cash game play. So he's someone I think I might include, especially at his price where we're looking for some value plays. Josh Doctson is a cheap play. He also does come with some risk. Last week we saw him emerge as the preferred target over Terrell Pryor in Washington. He played 94% of snaps, had 5 targets. He also has had 3 red zone targets in the last week and has 2 touchdowns this year on 14 targets. So I think we're starting to see the emergence of Josh Doctson. So this might be the time to get in early, especially in a matchup like Dallas where Washington could really be throwing the ball. So Josh Doctson is definitely a player I'd be looking for this week. And tight end, Tyler Kroft's gotten 4 targets in each of the last 4 games and scored 3 touchdowns. For 3K, he doesn't need to do much to help you out. And with this great matchup against Indy, there's every reason to play him. Hunter Henry has had 70 yards and/or a touchdown in each of the last 4 games. He's also averaging 6 targets a game and has a 25% market share in the red zone. So what we're seeing is Antonio Gates fading away and Hunter Henry taking over as the primary tight end in LA, not for the Chargers. So look for him as an option. I think I would still prefer to pay up to one of these other 2 guys, and Jimmy Graham, who's had double-digit fantasy points in each of the last 4 games since averaging almost 7 targets a game. He's the second receiver basically in Seattle, so he's struggled a bit, but again, pretty good matchup with Houston. I think he has a good chance of having a good game and possibly a great game. Finally, we got Jordan Reed. He's probably my favorite. When healthy, he's just a dominant player. The biggest issue for him has been staying on the field. He looked great last game with 8 receptions and 2 touchdowns on Monday night. I think he'll be a big factor in Dallas. He's one of my favorite plays this week. I'm definitely going to be stacking him with Kirk Cousins in a bunch of tournament lineups, and I think he might be a cash game play. I might do something like do 2 tight ends this week, like Jimmy Graydon and Jordan Reed. I think both of them provide excellent value, and that might give me the salary to get some better receivers and better running backs into my lineup. So that's something I'm going to be looking at. Definitely a little bit unconventional play, but with the lack of really reliable, cheap running back volume to put in the flex spot, I think that might make some sense. Defense, the theme here is rookie quarterbacks. I think this week it makes sense to go after these rookie quarterbacks. Cheapest option at 3,200 is we've got Seattle going up against Houston. I know Deshaun Watson's been the wonder kid. Everyone's been talking him up. But he hasn't faced any really truly good to great defenses. Playing in Seattle with the 12th mound and the noise and the weather against a good defense, I think it might be the Seattle has a good chance of putting a pretty good hurting on Deshaun Watson and the Houston offense in general. So I think they're a totally viable play here. At 3,400, we got New Orleans going up against Chicago and Mitch Trubisky. The biggest risk with that is Chicago showed zero interest in letting Mitch Trubisky throw the ball. They've just been handing it off, even if they're winning, losing, they don't care. So that could be the struggle. New Orleans might struggle to get sacks and turnovers and interceptions with Mitch Trubisky not throwing the ball. That said, they could easily come out to a big league, and Chicago might have to start trying to open up their offense, which I think the New Orleans defense could take advantage of. Next, we got Philly going up against San Francisco, playing yet another rookie quarterback. Philadelphia's defense has looked pretty good. Their pass rush is aggressive. You can't really run against them. So forcing a rookie quarterback into a throwing situation, even with Philadelphia's pretty questionable secondary, I think they could come up with with an interception or two, or get to the quarterback and get some sacks. So I think Philadelphia is definitely a viable play this week. Thank you very much for watching this Fate and Football Cash Game Picks for Week 8. If you enjoyed this video, definitely make sure you subscribe. We'll be posting a video for next week for Week 9. And best of luck with your DraftKings lineups.